Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are putting on our architect hats because we are drawing up a complete blueprint for Flutter, which is Google's toolkit for building incredible apps that can run pretty much anywhere.
So let's start with the official definition. At its heart, Flutter is an open-source UI software development kit from Google. But what does that really mean? Well, think of it like a giant, premium box of building blocks for developers, letting them create beautiful, fast applications for mobile, web, and desktop.
Now, Flutter's real superpower is something called cross-platform development. The big idea here is that you write your app's code just one time, and then Flutter acts like this amazing universal translator, making sure it runs perfectly on an iPhone, an Android phone, in your web browser, or even as a desktop app. One code to rule them all.
So here's how we're going to build this explainer today. We'll start with the blueprint to see what Flutter is. Then we'll look at the actual bricks, the widgets. After that, we'll connect the wiring with state management, check the building codes for best practices, and finally, we'll help you pick the right tools for your job. Okay, let's get right into our first section. We're going to lay down the foundation here and really get a handle on what Flutter is, where it came from, and, what makes it tick.
Flutter didn't just show up out of nowhere. It actually started way back in 2015 as this little experiment called Sky. From there, it had its big 1.0 launch in 2018, which was all about mobile, but it grew up fast. By 2022, with Flutter 3.0, it had become this true multi-platform powerhouse, really delivering on that whole build once, run anywhere promise.
Okay, if you remember just one thing from this entire explainer, please make it this. In the world of Flutter, literally everything is a widget. That button you see? That's a widget. The empty space around the button? Yep, also a widget. The layout, the text, the entire screen itself, you guessed it. It's all just widgets. So now that we get the core idea, let's actually get our hands dirty with the bricks themselves, the widgets. This is where you actually start putting together your app's interface, piece by piece. So what exactly is a widget? Well, it's more than just a visual thing. Think of it as a complete self-contained blueprint. It tells the app what something should look like, how it should be styled, and how it should react when you interact with it, all bundled into one handy, reusable piece.
And this is so important, there are really two main types of bricks you'll use. A stateless widget is kind of like a painted brick. It is what it is, and it doesn't change on its own. Perfect for things like an icon or a title. But a stateful widget, that's more like a light switch. It has its own internal memory, its state, like on or off, and it can change, which causes the UI to update.
The cool thing is, you don't need to learn hundreds of widgets to get going. Honestly, with just these essentials, you have a really powerful toolkit. The scaffold is like the skeleton of your screen. A container is your do-everything box for styling. Row and column let you arrange things. And text and icon, well, they do what they say.
Okay, so we built this beautiful, static house with our widgets. It looks great. But what happens when someone tries to flip a light switch, or when a delivery arrives at the front door? How does the house actually react? In the app world, that's like asking how the interface handles a user tapping a button, or new data showing up.
And that question brings us to the next critical step. We gotta install the wiring. In Flutter, this is called state management. And state is really just a fancy word for any data that can change over time. How you manage this state is what makes an app feel alive and responsive instead of like a static picture.
Now, not all state is created equal. First, you've got ephemeral state. Think of that as the current position of a dimmer switch on a light. Only that one switch really cares about it. Then you have app state. This is more like the main circuit breaker for the whole house. Every room needs to know if the power is on or off. A user's login status, or the items in a shopping cart. That's classic app state.
So, this is where you have to pick the right tool for the job. For that simple local state, Flutter's built-in set state is perfect. It's easy. But when you need to share state between different parts of your app, you'll want something like Provider. And for really complex apps where you need to keep things super organized, you might reach for a powerful pattern like Block, which keeps your UI and your logic totally separate.
All right, so we have our bricks, and we have our wiring. But any good builder knows you have to follow the building code. It's what makes sure your structure is solid, safe, and easy to renovate later. In the software world, we just call this clean architecture and best practices.
A fantastic way to structure your project is to think in layers. You've got the presentation layer, that's what the user actually sees and touches. Down at the bottom, you have the data layer, which handles grabbing info from the internet or a database. And right in the middle is the domain layer. That's where all the core business rules of your app live. It keeps everything so much more organized.
And here's a pro tip. To keep your app running super fast, you need to know that some building materials are just more expensive to use. For example, making a widget see-through with opacity seems simple, right? But behind the scenes, it can be costly because it forces the app to do a lot of extra work. Just being aware of these potential slowdowns is a huge advantage.
And here it is, the golden rule of building an app that you won't hate working on 6 months from now. Don't build one giant, complicated wall. Instead, build it with lots of small, simple, reusable bricks. It makes your code so much easier to understand, to test, and to change later on.
Okay, we've got the full blueprint now, from the foundation all the way to the roof. So let's circle back to one of the biggest decisions you'll make, choosing the right state management tool for your project.
Think of this as your practical cheat sheet. I mean, you wouldn't use a giant industrial crane to build a small shed, right? It's the same idea here. For a simple to-do list, set state is all you need. For a medium-sized shopping app, something like Provider is a great fit. But for a huge, complex social media app, you'll be glad you have the power and structure of Block or Riverpod. It's all about matching the tool to the task.
So, there you have it. We've laid out the foundation. We've shown you the building blocks, we've explained the wiring, and we've gone over the building code. You've got the complete blueprint. So now, the only question left is, what are you going to build?